This is my very first attempt at building an actual level, as opposed to just a sandbox. I know nothing about level design, so this is fairly rudimentary, but I think it's a reasonable starting point, and I'm sure as I go I will learn more things, and I plan to revisit this later on. But it's an okay starting point. I've built this raised platform to put the tower on, and I've made the tower a bit smaller because this is a tutorial level. I've also blocked off a couple of the directions that the enemies can approach from, and created these ramps so that they can only come up at certain areas. The intention here is that this will limit the number of directions that the player has to cover and give them a chance to get used to aiming and shooting without having to defend all points simultaneously. I've also added these rocks, which are fairly arbitrarily placed, but I've added some in key locations in an attempt to funnel the enemies a little bit more to make them easier to shoot, and also to try and suggest to the players that this is something that they can do with their walls as well, is to funnel the enemies. In order to support this, I've had to add some new functionality, including the ability to shoot down on enemies from above, and I've extended the way that I store the data for the levels and created a data table which allows me to store a bunch of relevant information about each level, such as how many enemies will spawn, how often they will spawn, that kind of thing. And I can store that in a data table and read that data in at the start of the level. This allows me to be a bit more bespoke with what happens in each level. In addition to the map itself, I can customize how many enemies appear and so on and so forth. So this is the very early days of building levels for my game, but it's a starting point.